welcome you to the first meeting of the Logan City Council for 2022. This evening, we have the wonderful opportunity to welcome our newly elected members and our newly re-elected mayor. Well, they're re-elected members too. So our first order of business this evening will be the opening ceremony by our poet laureate, followed by the oath of office that will be done by our Judge Lee Edwards. Come on up.
Hello everybody, I'm so happy to be here to help open the first Logan City Council meeting in 2022. Thank you to all of my wonderful friends who have come to support me, but also the position of Poet Laureate for the city. And I wanted to say thank you to Holly Danes and to all of our members of the Logan City Council for making this position possible. We have a very strong literary community in Cache Valley, and many of the members of that community are here tonight. So thank you very much. I will read my poem, and then Judge Lee Edwards will administer an oath of office to Mayor-elect Holly H. James, Councilmember-elect Amy Z. Anderson, and Councilmember-elect Ernesto Lopez. So I hope that those of you who have come to support me tonight will be able to stay to watch that part of the ceremony. I'd like to begin with a little quote from the poet Rumi. And the quote is, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray." And what I love and what many of us love and what has saved us during the last couple of years is our beautiful Cache Valley. And I wanted to celebrate the new year with a poem about nature of Cache Valley. And so this poem is set along a tributary of the Logan River. And it is called Poem for the New Year, January 2022. Fields of snow gleam like fallen stars, and tall frosted cattails line the stream, blue sheen glistening. The sun is so bright it aches my eyes as I unclip the leash from my young golden retriever, who explodes into the field, cruising low, snuffing, scooping up great mouthfuls of snow before he flops and rolls, then flips back onto his feet to race downstream, stirring up 6 ducks who blast up squawking. And then, from a sudden stillness, a great blue heron rises from the rushes like a dream. The graceful curve of its neck, wide black stripe over its eye, slow, heavy body, slate blue and shaggy, steady cadence of colossal wings. It recedes into the distance toward the willows, each transformed into a fountain of glass, hoarfrost shimmering. O world, hold me against your feathered breast. There is nothing, nothing I want more than to hold this beauty in my body, the calligraphy of wings scrolling messages across the sky. My cheeks and fingers sting. I lick my sun-kissed lips, inhale and taste my scarf's woolly musk as the wind whips up, spiraling snow into a sparkling funnel. Time ticks in my chest. So many things to feel and see. My dog sprints ahead, his body shrouded in a cloud of powder, but he skids to a stop to look back at me, his gold fur gleaming in the sun, his dark eyes shining as if to say, "Don't just stand there, run."
Oh, thank you. Shannon, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Lee, you're up.
Thank you. Do I come down and we'll do it?
Yeah. To front and center, y'all.
You'll do the pledge after.
I did just want to say something very briefly. Thanks for running. Local government is where it affects the quality of life for all of the citizens of Logan. And as a citizen of Logan, I'm very happy that people like yourselves are willing to run for local office and help make life better for citizens in our community. So when I ask you to repeat the oath, we're doing it all at once. So I'll have you say your name and then your office near the end of the oath, okay? So please raise your right hand. I, state your name,
I, Amy Anderson, Holly H. Deans,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
as, state your office,
as mayor, city council member,
to which I have been elected with fidelity.
to which I have been elected with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now if you will join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks to Tom, that was a little out of order, sorry. Glad you said it. I may have forgotten. Anyway, our next order of business is the acceptance of the minutes and the approval of the agenda for this evening.
I sent Teresa a couple of changes, but I would move acceptance of the minutes and approval of the agenda for tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Mark Anderson is trying to join us via Zoom, but his plane left 4 hours late, so he may still be in flight. If he can, he will appear on Zoom. But I don't expect that he will be with us, but anyway, he was trying. Our 2022 regular meeting schedule is the first and third Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. Our next meeting is January 18th at 5:30 right here. And now this is our open opportunity for community members to speak on an issue for which they have some concern or something they would like to say to us that is not otherwise on the agenda. Should anyone care to speak, please come forward, state your name, and take 3 minutes if you need to. Wow. Seeing no one, we'll move on. Our next item of business is the mayor's staff reports. Mayor Daines.
We will have some exciting things happening in the next month or two as we move forward with demolition on both the Emporium building to move forward with that project and on the library. They are currently doing the final asbestos mitigation in the Emporium for the next few weeks, and the construction fence should go up around January 14th, and then demolition activities will begin to start. The library, the same thing this month, will be asbestos removal, and demolition is scheduled for sometime in February. So 2 really big projects that we have worked on for a long time are finally about to happen. We'll let you know when they're going to.
Yeah, because we may need to have sledgehammers or something.
I know, so we will let you know if you'd like to show up for a moment of demolition.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Only symbolic sledgehammers.
No, real sledgehammers.
That big machine's free.
Every person of a certain age needs to wield the sledgehammer at least once.
Okay.
I won't say woman, but it is women. It's a very powerful feeling. Wield the sledgehammer. It is. Anyway, I will look forward to that, actually. Anything else, Mayor?
That should do it for tonight.
Okay. We're going to move on to council business. Planning Commission update. Planning Commission hasn't met for so long that I don't remember what happened at the last meeting.
Well, again, with the holiday break, you
Right.
know, so I think you reported on it at the last
Yes, I
council
did.
meeting, so.
And they haven't had a meeting since,
Right.
so next time we'll have a new report. And we have in front of us a proposed list of council committees and board and committee assignments. And I know that Tom has already told me that recap is no longer recap, it is resab, so we need to change that. But I thought it would be nice for those watching and for those in the audience to know what else we do besides sit here twice a month as part of our responsibilities for Logan City Council and for Logan City. So I figured I would let each one of us, starting with Amy, just talk about the committees that they have been on and they're going to stay the same for this next year.
Sure. So the most exciting committee of all is the Audit Committee, because we get to review the finances for our city every quarter. And I may be a little facetious, but ultimately that's what our responsibility is to make sure that the city is operating in a fiscally sound way. So it's that we meet quarterly with that. A new committee this year was the Homeless Coordinating Council, which I am co-chairing for this upcoming year. That has been very eye-opening, and I hope that everybody will be more willing to recognize that homelessness truly is a problem here in Cache County. I think it's easy to think that that's only a problem with super big cities, but we definitely have an issue here. In fact, you'll be, keep your eyes open. Our point in time count for Cache County will be on January 26th. I'll be looking for volunteers for that, but I know we have some members of our school board here, and Frank is here. You know, there's homeless students here in Logan, so it's something that we all need to be aware of and we all need to be mindful of to continue to try to alleviate that burden on those individuals. Also serve on the Public Arts Fine Arts Committee, which is fun because we get to give money to people. Everybody, they apply for grants each year, so that meets annually. I'm also on the Public Arts Committee, which people may recall we passed that 18 months ago, is it? And we just did our first call for projects, so we'll be hearing some more about that, looking at doing some murals. We've got artists that are identifying opportunities within a few different sites, so that's been fun to work on. Been serving on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, which looks at trying to encourage active transportation. I think we're going to be seeing something soon on new guidelines for non-motorized and small motor equipment, so scooters and bicycles here in our city, because we obviously would like to keep our air quality better, so more active transportation the best. And then I also serve on the Downtown Alliance, which is an organization here that people may not be aware of, but the downtown businesses, it's a defined area that meets monthly. They as an organization put on a lot of the activities that happen downtown and are currently what's the word I'm looking for? We fund partially the Downtown Alliance staff through our redevelopment agency. Thank you. That just went right out of my head.
I didn't know where you were going, so
Yeah. And then, like everybody else, I serve on the community block development grant. So that may have been much more long-winded than
No, it's fine. Vanessa?
I get to also serve on 5 different committees or boards. The Cache Valley Center for the Arts, which meets once a month. We get to hear about all the fun plays and other performances that come to Logan and perform at the Echoes Theater. The Resale Board, the Renewable Energy and Sustainability Advisory Board, that one gets to meet every other month. The Light and Power Advisory Board, and that one meets quarterly. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meets every month, and also the Community Development and Block Grant.
Tom?
Well, I have, excuse me, a number of assignments that have not changed from last year, and that's either because I haven't learned how to do it or because I'm invaluable.
Agree, and
Yeah.
you're invaluable.
So I'll disagree with Amy. The most exciting committee is the Water and Sewer Board. And that's because if the stuff doesn't go down the drain, we're gonna get calls from a lot of people quickly. And so that's an important committee. Also, the Stormwater Advisory Board. I serve on the CMPO, which is determining where highways and transportation systems will be developed for the future, which we all know is one of the top issues for most citizens. The Golf Course Advisory Board, which keeps a lot of people out of trouble and or maybe gets them into trouble. The Resale Board, which I have found very educational as I've sat on that. I said the Stormwater Advisory and the Cache Valley Center for the Arts. I serve on that partly because I'm chairman of the Facilities Committee. And as you know, that grand old lady, the Ellen Eccles Theater, still needs some tune-ups and some repairs and beautification, which has taken place over the last several years. So we can all be proud of what's happened over there and the fact that it's working so well. And then we all serve on CDBG, which I'm very proud of the things that we've accomplished over the last number of years. That's it.
So I will talk about Mark's assignments as well as my own. Mark serves on the Historic Preservation Committee, which is a committee that meets twice a month, theoretically at noon. It just depends upon what projects are presented to that board, whether or not they meet or not, and how that all works out. He's also on the library board. He and I have been working with the mayor we helped develop the design for the new library and have been working hard to try and have the new library be a reality, not just a dream. And so we're excited about that. I know he's been very involved with the library board. He's also on Economic Development Committee and Solid Waste Advisory Board and CDBG. And in addition to being chair, I serve on the Airport Authority Board, not because I'm the only person that has a pilot's license, so the mayor said, you could be on that board. And I've served on that board for quite some time. I also get to share the joy of the Audit Committee with Amy. Very interesting. An Audit Committee is an interesting opportunity for us to take a deep dive into the finances of the city if we need to, and to get an overall view when we don't need to do a deep dive. So it makes you aware of how the city functions and how the different funds can be used within the city, because government accounting is way different than any other. I'm also on the Public Arts, Fine Arts Committee. We have allocated money annually to small arts organizations in the city that can apply for small grants to do performances or to do outreach. And so we review all of those applications along with some community members once a year, and we award those grants. The Public Arts Committee, like Amy said, we just finished a master plan for public art, and we are going to be not only just a beautiful valley, but a beautiful city with lots of public art. So we're excited to see how that unfolds. I'm on the Economic Development Committee, which receives application from businesses that wish to come into the community and works closely with Kurt as our Economic Development Director. And I come to Planning Commission every time they meet, or almost every time. Not because it's an official thing that I'm supposed to do, but I was on Planning Commission for 6 years before I joined the council, and I still think it's one of the critical pieces to the growth of this community. And we all sit on CDBG, which allows us to fund both sidewalks and handicapped access, as well as a lot of nonprofits within our community. So I think that it's important once a year at least for us to let you know what else we do. Because sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's not a lot. In addition to that, I wanted to have a little short discussion about our responsibilities with respect to neighborhoods. Because each of us have been assigned, we've each chosen a neighborhood other than our own to help to represent on the council, to be aware of what their issues are, to go to their meetings if they have neighborhood meetings. And I know that Mark has worked carefully with the Woodruff neighborhood. He had told me that he would just as soon stay with the Woodruff neighborhood. And hopefully, maybe all of us should just stay in the neighborhoods we're in, but could we talk about what we've done with our neighborhoods?
And also, in the coming year, we're going to be working on some neighborhoods. We already have an official neighborhood plan completed. And again, we're continuing to work through those, and we'll be starting a couple more of those this year.
I hope we can get those all done before we have to do another general plan. So, Tom, can you talk a little bit about your neighborhood?
Well, the neighborhood I've worked with, although it's not been highly active, is Adams neighborhood. And I think it's been a wonderful neighborhood because it's been so active in the past with their input on multifamily housing and absentee landlords.
And they were the first neighborhood plan that was completed.
Right, well, I wasn't part of that, but yeah, praise to those that were part of that. I appreciated the single meeting I went to because it was very active with regard to the ADUs, or accessory dwelling units. There was a good, large group of people. They were very vocal. You were also attending that. I wish that they could do meetings of that quality at least quarterly, and if we could do something monthly. So maybe that's partly my responsibility, is to stimulate that. I appreciate staying with them to get something moving again.
Good. Ernesto?
I serve on the Wilson neighborhood, and I've been to 2-3 of our meetings. One of them was planting that tree at the Marlin Olson Park. And recently I attended a meeting, and they're looking into ways of encouraging other neighbors to join the executive committee and also the regular meetings that they have. Yeah.
Good. You're good with sticking with the family here? Excellent. Edie?
So I was serving on the Hillcrest neighborhood council this year. It was a busy year for them. They had not really been actively organized, so looked at creating guidelines, and Mayor Daines had a kickoff meeting with me. Gosh, was that 9 months ago or so?
Yeah.
So one of their big issues up there is the potential for adding a new park that kind of generated a lot of interest. So I know they have a lot of enthusiastic individuals up there, so it's been good to get to know some of the people that are my neighbors. And we actually are going to be staying in Hillcrest at least for another year, so this will be my main neighborhood. So I'm happy to stay there. I'm happy to go elsewhere.
No, we're going to stay.
Okay.
Okay. And I have done Ellis and Bridger, and earlier this summer, Ellis had a very well-attended meeting here at the city where they discussed all kinds of issues. There was a wide representation of individuals in the neighborhood, and they expressed a lot of concerns that we were able to address, and they were especially concerned about the development that is currently almost finished on 6th West and 2nd North. It's something Meadows, I can't remember. But Bracken Atkinson, who works for Wasatch Construction, thank you. My brain is not working today. Came and answered a lot of questions for the community. The Bridger neighborhood has never been really very active, but Dean Quayle, who was a former council member, organized that group and got them going. They haven't had a meeting since that beginning meeting, but I'm hopeful that they will have another meeting in the next year or so and begin to coalesce as a group. And I think it's important for the neighborhoods to feel that they have a voice, and so we are that voice for them.
If I could just add, it seems to me that while we do some very good things here, hopefully it's appreciated, but that the way to really reach to the citizens, the neighbors, is to have a good neighborhood council where we are involved. So it's a little kick in the pants for all of us to stimulate that and have that working. I think that's the way to really get connected to the citizens, hopefully.
I agree. So we'll move now to our action items. Our first action, we have 2 of them this evening. The first action item is the consideration of a proposed resolution approving the voter participation area. Craig, we're going to turn it over to you.
All right, the council workshopped this at the last council meeting.
Yeah, well, sort of.
Well, sort of. Well, I'll give you a brief refresher and hopefully we'll answer your questions that you might have.
Because it changed, it all changed right after that.
It did. So state code requires cities to have voter participation areas. They're required to have 8 separate participation areas. And VPAs are for the limited purpose of initiatives and referendums. The city first created a VPA in 2020, and then we need to do it again in 2022 by state code, and then 10 years later will be the next time we need to do an updated VPA. We relied on the Cache County precinct map, voting precinct map. It did change, but we didn't have any, we're not required to rely upon that map. It was just they had the information that we could use. They had the voter and the areas and things like that. So we drew our lines from that map, and it's likely to change before we have to do this again in 10 years. So we're not required to use that map, but that's what we did because the information was there.
So Craig, could you talk about why we have to have them a little more? Because it was a state law that was instituted specifically for elected takeover.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Initiatives are direct legislation from the people. Referendum is when the council passes a local law and maybe the public or a portion of the public doesn't agree with it and want the public to vote on it. So those are the 2 things that come into play. It's the purpose of it is that there may be a high concentration of people in one area that are really concerned about one specific issue. And prior to BPA's, legislation could be passed, an initiative or referendum that only benefited that one area. But now with BPAs, you have to have 75% of the BPAs to do an initiative or to do a referendum. So it cuts across the whole city or 3/4 of the city.
Is there any other effect on our daily life or the government other than what you just said?
No, strictly initiatives and referendums.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? This is an action item, but not a public hearing. So if you approve of the voter participation areas, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the action item resolution 2159 regarding the VPAs of voter participation areas.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Our second item is a public hearing. It's a budget adjustment. Rich, would you like to just go over the particulars?
We have one item to consider. It's a grant from the Internet Crimes Against Children for our police department for $13,000. We do receive this one pretty much each year.
Does anybody have any questions? This is a public hearing. If any member of the public would like to speak to this, please come to the podium. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back for a decision.
So move acceptance of resolution 21-16.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We'll move now to our workshop items. We have Frank Schofield here, Superintendent of Logan City Schools, who will discuss with us proposed voting precincts for Logan City School District Board members. This is a state, kind of go over the history a little bit.
Certainly. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all tonight. This is a state requirement due to the recent census, where those numbers have been updated. We're required to then review our board voting precincts and see if any adjustments need to be made based on the census numbers. The state requires that local board voting precincts are approved by the local municipalities. So Mayor Daines and I visited a couple months ago about this, and we decided that what we would do, either, and the question was, do we have the city create this, or do we bring a proposal to you all and ask for your approval? So that's what you have, is a proposal of the board voting precincts from the district for you all to consider. We took this after receiving, as Logan mentioned tonight, the updated voting precincts from the county, and looked at those and tried to both preserve relationships that existing board members have with established communities, where they're aware of the needs of those communities, and then also preserve, of course, contiguous boundaries and ensure proportionality between the different voting precincts. So the draft that you have in your board packet, or your council packet, excuse me, is just a reflection of those two goals and dividing up the voting precincts that were approved by the county council in precincts that we think will work for our board voting districts as well. So that's a brief summary of the background behind it, why we're bringing it to you as opposed to our board voting on it, and the reasons behind the recommendation.
Does anybody have any questions?
So when I'm looking at the map, there's the Logan 24 areas. Is that because those are part of the county? They don't have the dark black lines?
Yeah, so anything, you'll note on those, they're followed by CSD.
Yeah,
Those are precincts that have been incorporated into Logan City, but because they were county land, they've been annexed to Logan City, but they still pertain to Cache County
School
schools.
district, okay.
That was one of Herm's biggest.
I know.
You know, those are the blue ones that are Logan 24 CSD, and then Logan 22, just there by off of Woodruff. That's also a CSD.
And over by River Heights as well.
Right.
So these roughly correspond to the locations of the elementary schools then, still correct?
Roughly, they made there were a couple of adjustments, but not too many. There's one voting district in the Bridger neighborhood that's, I can't remember which one it is now, but it was the one that Amy Jerry was in. That's been done away with, she mentioned. So there have been some adjustments by the county. They still primarily correspond to elementary boundaries.
Which you're also looking at right now anyway, right?
Yes, our first official hearing will be on the 11th, it's the next Tuesday, and then another on the 25th.
Okay.
With all the elementary boundary discussions.
You're having more fun than you know how.
I can't keep it, it's just so exciting. Water and sewer's got nothing on that.
I don't know, they're gonna run the first real sewage through the sewage treatment plant. That's pretty exciting.
Well, I'll see the excitement. He can have it.
Anyway, well, thank you so much. We will bring this to the council next meeting for a vote.
Okay, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Was there a public hearing on this, or is it just us?
That's a workshop. Yes, just-
Next.
No.
Just us, okay.
Rich, you have a budget adjustment.
Several items to consider in this one. Request to appropriate $16,229 for police overtime reimbursements. Request to appropriate $1.600032 received from the Cache County Council of Governments to be used for First West. Request to appropriate $250,713 also for First West. It's an agreement between us and a developer paying for those. It's part of the overall project, but items that were the responsibility of the developer, they've paid us, and now we're requesting to appropriate those funds. Request to appropriate $5,000 for the police department grant from the state of Utah for alcohol and drug-free committee funds for purchase of equipment. And lastly, a request to appropriate $100,000 of reserves for utility billing credit card fees. We try to stay on top of this thing, but it's good news, bad news. More people are paying with credit card. Bad news is we have more fees. It's built into the rates that we currently have, however, it's not built into the budget. So we had to come forward for a resolution.
How much is that fee percentage-wise?
It's usually around 2%.
That's a lot of money.
We target a low dollar amount, high number of transactions through credit cards. In other words, we don't allow commercial utility customers to pay with credit card. They can, but we'll charge them a fee, their own fees back to them. So it's usually individual bills less than $3,000 will allow it to go through credit card. Anything above that, they have to pay with a check or some other means. So but we're trying to stay on top of it. It's just a 20% increase in participation is hard to anticipate.
An individual bill, $3,000?
Up to $3,000 we will allow to go through credit card. Anything above that will turn around and charge.
I'm sorry to tell you that if my bill were $3,000, I'd be having a heart attack.
Oh, that's a commercial.
It does some small commercial. There are some large residential, but I'm not sure if they reach quite 3,000. 3,000 covers some of the smaller commercial. Any larger commercial, yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
Now, there are other methods of paying credit card, paying utility bills that do not involve credit card fees, such as bank draft. And in the future, we have been discussing how we might incentivize people to go to that as opposed to using credit cards. However, credit cards and bank draft do save us a lot of time. If we were to charge fees, it's possible we'd have less participation. We have more people calling in, which means we'd have to have more staff on hand in order to cover the increased volume of either walk-up traffic or telephone. So we're working through it. We'll try to anticipate the budget a little bit better for next year, but 20% increase, it's hard to anticipate that.
Any other questions?
So this cost already estimated in the operating budget for those utilities?
For the most part, we anticipate that the fees are included within the rates that we currently charge. However, with 20% increase in participation, we may have to relook at some of those rates a little sooner than later. We'll just have to see how it works out.
Or make your top end lower.
We can make the top end lower. We could also charge a transaction fee for paying with credit card. All of those options are available to us. From the finance department perspective, we don't have a recommendation currently. We're trying to figure out what the right approach is, because although it's bad that we're paying a lot in credit card fees, it's good that we have so many people participating in a method that they can kind of resolve their own issues. If they're not doing that, then maybe they're walking up or they're calling in, then we have to have more staff or more availability. So it's a double-edged sword. We will at some point bring forward a recommendation either to administration if it's administrative or to council if it's something that requires council approval. Ways of controlling these fees. We're not the only ones, businesses deal with it too, but they are a convenience, but for that convenience there's a fee, and sometimes it's steep. Occasionally we'll have people pay Like we had somebody pay $100,000 utility bill with a credit card. And we charge them those fees back to them. The same reason they want to use the credit card is the same reason we don't want them to use the credit card. They want it for the rewards. We don't want to pay for those rewards.
But we're also not getting like non-sufficient funds, like the people with checks to some extent, I would imagine too, that, you know,
Absolutely.
those are kind of a difficult thing to manage as well.
Occasionally with bad debt customers who are struggling, even commercial customers, we have taken credit cards simply because it's better to receive that payment and pay a fee than not to receive the payment at all and have to shut masses of customers down. Usually those are large residential facilities.
Anybody else? Thanks, Rich. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll turn now to Tanya for a rezone.
Wait for those guys to put on.
See, you gotta watch all the time.
That's got a number, that's the same as the one above it, 2201.
One's an ordinance and one's a resolution.
I see.
I don't see it.
I just have a couple slides that I wanted to show you. Good? All righty. So we have a rezone. Ethan's Honest Automotive, they do both repair and services of automobiles. And the proponent is requesting a rezone because a portion of the work that they do is not allowed in the commercial zone. So to orient you, the project site is on Automall Drive and 200 West. The Automall is just to the west, just to the east of the property, and Quail Hollow in R6 is just to the west of the property. There's North Logan, just over the city line there, the red city line, and vacant lots to the south. So that's a little orientation for you. Here's our FLUP map. It is currently zoned commercial and is intended to, and the FLUP shows commercial as well. There isn't any CS zoning in this general area at this time. I did mention that it's a vacant lot currently, you can see there. So just as a little bit of a review, the main difference in the two zones is that the commercial zone limits land uses that are industrial in nature. So that would, what that involves, what is allowed in terms of cars is that oil changes, tire services, for example, things that are minor, that are in and out types of service, not overnight leaving cars for days on end, where the commercial services is less restrictive when it comes to permitted uses. So you can have long-term cars staying at the property and more repair-oriented things going on that may provoke noise or other types of things. The primary issue, though, or not the primary issue, the real considerations are that there's an NR6 zone. This is an image that I took standing on the site, looking right across 2nd West to Quail Hollow. That's really the consideration here with this rezone. This is, like I said, heading, looking west, and this is looking north across the property to North Logan. So this was presented at Planning Commission. They voted 7-0 denial on the project. I think that's all really that I have. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them at this point, but I'll present this again next into this.
So I know this is on the border. What is the zone for North Logan? Right there, what is that project?
Why? I'll find that out next week.
That would be great.
Yes. What I know now is that there are homes here. I did speak with, pardon me, I spoke with Spencer Burke, who's the planner in North Logan, and about a few months ago, he said that that was residential. Or maybe mixed use.
So with the planning commission action, I'm assuming there were 2 hearings there, and also the staff discussions with the proponent, I'm surprised that they would continue to pursue this. It doesn't seem to make sense.
It has been a rocky road, actually. I've had a very hard time getting in touch with him. I finally spoke with him today. And he's looking at the properties, but wants to see what this outcome is.
Can you talk a little bit about what the planning commission said with respect to their denial?
Gee, you're asking a very hard question.
But then when I first looked at this, I was like, well, it's right, it's Automobile Drive, and this is auto services. So
Right.
it was interesting to read some of the comments just on the fact that because they do some of this work in the dealerships, but yet there was discussion about how that's closer to the road, it's set apart from the residential
Well,
neighborhood.
this is a bit of a buffer in between the auto mall and the residential zone, where if, that was part of the discussion, Jeannie, if you were there. The other thing is that this is a 2-acre parcel, and the auto mall is a much larger parcel, so you have distance between the activities of what's happening versus a smaller parcel where the activities are going to be much closer to the boundary. Those were 2 points. I can go through the minutes if they're on the minutes. I don't recall. The proponent did not show. I don't know if that had some bearing, but he did not show for planning commission.
Well, for me, it's also always that question of, you can look at this and say, well, it's automotive in nature, but when you change the zone, it opens it up to all
That
commercial
is correct.
services, not just the idea that this would be a repair shop. So
That's right. So
what are the other services that could go in here that have more impact on a residential?
I have that, I believe that's in the staff report. So there's a whole list of, like you said, zoning goes with the land. If you were to sell in a couple of years, it would now be zoned for all industrial things that are allowed in the CF zone. The CF zone is a in-between land between commercial and industrial, so there's a lot of things that can happen that are more industrial related.
If I remember correctly too, I think planning commission felt it was inappropriate to take a little corner out of a zone and change it.
Yeah.
The rest of it is all commercial. So
Right. So they felt like, yeah, exactly, it felt like spot zoning.
It would be the only piece in that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a buffer, but it's the wrong buffer. It should be a step-down buffer rather than a step-up.
Right.
In fact, it's more
The
egregious
vacant
than
lot
commercial.
is a buffer, but not the CS zone wouldn't be a buffer between the auto mall and R6. The vacant lot is a bit of a buffer, or some other kind of commercial use would be a bit of a buffer, I suppose.
Any other questions? Okay,
I'll find that out for you.
we will,
Jeannie, for sure.
hear from you again in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Are there any other considerations? Outbursts?
Outbursts?
Don't do any outbursts. Hearing none? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
All of our meetings can be just shortly through